like we didn't have to do a lot of work because like he was just so knowledgeable about everything that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Welcome to The Wardrobe. This is the Who You Know podcast. I'm Rylan Deemer.
And I'm Elisa Wilde.
And today's guest you are going to love. His name is Steven Zitner. He is a good friend of ours and really knowledgeable about a lot of topics. And I think, we go so deep on like cryptocurrency and Steven's background.
But yeah, he does such a good job of explaining things. Me being someone who doesn't understand in-depth topics as much still took away a lot from this. So I have Bitcoin now, so that's new as a result of this episode.
Yeah, after the episode, Steven got her set up with her own cryptocurrency wallet, and now Elisa has Bitcoin.
Yep, so now I need to do more research.
Yeah. Anyway, stay tuned. Like I said, you're going to love the episode, and next up is Steven. Yeah, it really freaked us out the first couple times.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of freaking out, okay, so once a month we have a cleaner come in.
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling Elisa this story the other day as well. But our cleaner came in and we had asked her as a special thing to clean around the walls of the basement because the spiders really accumulate.
Okay,
so all the rugs are up. And I've got really bad arachnophobia. And oh my goodness. So I pointed the cleaner toward one of the trouble spots where it's super webby. And she just takes her bare hand and thrusts it into the web and swishes around to break the web up. I was I was like, oh my God, she's on another level. I'm watching a spider run away from her. And yeah, it really freaked me out. I couldn't believe she did it.
Did she end up cleaning the baseboard stuff?
Yeah.
It wasn't just that one spot?
No. Normally I'd be able to look over there and see some webs, but they're gone now. And,
so I think they're a lot less dangerous than our fears make them out to be. They actually will be their first instinct is to run away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's she probably knows that and just okay, you're going to get out of here. There's just two spiders though that can bite you and you'll lose your handle deteriorate. The brown recluse and the black widow.
Both of which I think live around here, right?
Yep. They do.
I was going to say the opposite. Now you're scaring me.
Yeah. Well, we don't know then, I guess. We'll have to do a Google search afterwards.
We're not entomologists.
No.
Is that the right word?
That's for study of words.
Oh.
I believe entomology is.
Would it be something to do with arachnids? Arachnidologist?
Yeah. I think we're making it up a bit on the fly. That's maybe just a biologist, studies creatures.
Okay, so Annie.
Annie, more or less.
Okay.
But biology is the master set. That's just probably someone who does study insects and arachnids.
Anyway, how are you feeling? How's that hitting you?
Not yet. I feel hydrated.
Should we have this on camera?
I don't. Maybe
it's fine.
Maybe they'll pay us.
Maybe a sponsorship.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
If we drink it enough.
For now, we'll call it X beverage. Some generic name.
Insert beverage name here.
Yeah. Until then,
I think all three of us had a workout morning, right?
Mm.
You worked out today too?
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
That's good. Are you sore?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't get too sore after workouts anymore, but once you kind of get used to it. Although I did have a little bit of when you work out too hard and intensely and you need a rest day, sometimes your body will tell you. So my arm, which I have a prior injury on, flared up, and that is not obviously a definitive test that tells you need to stop, but or take a rest day. But when you have a random ache or muscle soreness that kind of just springs up on you, that's typically a sign you need a rest day or a deload week. So
what's a deload week?
That's where, so you have splits in a training program where, and it can be designed in any such way, but they usually take place over anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks or so. And then at the end of that 12 weeks, a lot of times elite lifters will take a deload week, and what that is it's really, you don't really sacrifice anything on intensity. So if your top working range for squat is like 405 plus, something like up there, you still do that, but you really take the volume out of it. So you might do 2 sets of 3 instead of like 5 sets of 5.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that allows your body to adjust. And I mean, the name kind of says it all, deload. I think from what I've read that and heard from other exercise channels and such on YouTube is that if you just really push through it, you do kind of run into an injury head on, and you're out for longer if you don't pull yourself back. And a lot of recovery too isn't just physical muscle tissue being rebuilt or even ligaments and tendons being rebuilt. Your central nervous system gets overloaded if you really go hard. You hustle, and you have no breaks. So it's actually more, sometimes it's more mental. A good sign of that is like, if you wake up in the morning or anytime you really can't grip very hard, likely your body is overloaded. Even if you've had enough like muscle recovery time, you still need some extra recovery.
I feel like you're like, all 3 of us exercise, but you're like a tier or 2 or 5 like above my level of fitness.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like the things that you have to think about in order to like maintain or like do your fitness regimen is so much more than what I have to even like. I don't even have to like think of like doing a deload week because I just don't work out to that degree.
Yeah, you have to load to begin with. Some people take a lot of rest days, rest weeks even.
And I was gonna say, like, after I work out, like if it's an intense set, I'll be sore 3 days later. Like my muscles are still like doing the recovery thing.
Yeah.
And you're saying that goes away to some degree, or okay.
After 2 to 3 weeks, it varies by person and training level and how well you take care of yourself outside of the gym. But generally, when you get into like a lifting zone, after about 2 to 3 weeks, you honestly leave the gym, and whether it's immediately or 2 days later, you don't feel any real soreness anymore at all, actually. You might feel some soreness here and there. And actually, I had a weird cramp that actually happened that caused some soreness in my legs. So I do feel a tiny bit, but that's more just because I think I was not hydrated enough heading into the gym, or I didn't eat a solid breakfast. But general muscle soreness diminishes over time. And again, like the 3 factors outside the gym that I always tell people like to concentrate on. If you have like 3 months of your life and you can focus on just this and optimizing these, you like turn into a different person that I don't think a lot of people find like from themselves. And like after the things are, one is nutrition. Depends on the type of body you are. If you are someone who doesn't gain as easily, you stay really thin very much, so then your nutrition plan is likely to eat a lot of calories, caloric surplus, and then make sure you have
that's me, 100%.
multivitamins. So, and your body is forced to grow. Like if you've been like thin, like I used to be really thin, you would have not recognized, a lot thinner than I am now. And your body really is forced to grow if you eat a caloric surplus. And it's uncomfortable initially, but eventually you kind of, if that's what you want to do, your body will change. Hydration is the next one. You need to stay pretty hydrated with water. And that's a huge, like, you're not going to recover at all. You're going to feel like crap if you don't drink enough water. And then the third one is rest. Some people just really like, they don't have any sort of schedule to their sleep at all. They just treat sleep as like, I'll get to it. They'll stay up very much, and I'm not saying you need to go to bed at 8 every night and wake up at 6. That sounds like the stereotypical thing, but just get your 8 hours and
that does not sound stereotypical.
Well, I mean, the stereotypical, like, oh, I get up at 6 and I go to bed on time every night.
Sure,
and then I never go out. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, this is like, you just carve out a chunk of your life and you follow these. And if you do it well, and then you add training, of course, you got to train well, you'll be a different person, not just physically, but mentally at the end of it. And it won't seem nearly as like formidable to go back to. It always is. When you get into a slump, you have to go through that 2 or 3 weeks of soreness again. But like once you get through that, you're kind of unstoppable.
Yeah.
So when you say rest, you meant more the sleeping versus like taking days off.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, rest days are like incorporated into your schedule if you follow a plan, and your trainer will put that in there if you have a trainer.
Do you create your own plan, or like do you follow something online, or do you just know what to do?
Well, so like for the longest time, I've lifted on and off, successfully, unsuccessfully for years. I've figured it all out myself. And so the level, whatever level I'm at, is really an unorganized combination of multiple things. And I haven't always had the money to pay for a trainer or like a plan. So I really kind of now I'm making it up as I go. But other times I've followed plans in the past, and plans vary based on your goal.
Yeah.
Generally, and in the realm of like muscle building, you can either have a hypertrophy goal or a powerlifting goal. It's hard to do both because
Hypertrophy,
that's a fancy word for exercises that stimulate muscle growth and size. So bodybuilders, they do hypertrophy type exercises because they want large biceps and triceps and chests. And whereas
what was the second one?
Powerlifting type exercises. So these ones are focused on the primary compound lifts, bench press, overhead press, deadlift, squats, and really focus on all training to make you capable of pulling or pushing more weight in those specific goals. So it's more technical.
Okay.
And they're kind of at odds, but so it really depends on what your goal is. What do you want to get out of it? It's gratifying to hit a new PR, which public record, I think, or personal record on a lift. So powerlifting has its allure to some degree, but as you get older, it might not be nearly as much of your goal, and like you don't want to like throw out your back. But some people actually seem to maintain a strong training regimen even into their 50s and 60s. So
it's awesome hearing you talk about all this, and I want to pause for a second and say welcome to the wardrobe. Steven Zitner, it's so good to have you here.
Yep.
I'm always worried I mispronounce your last name, so let me know if I got that right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. But yeah, we're very thankful to have you here today. And we've been talking about exercise a lot, and we'll probably still talk a little bit more about it. But
yeah, because today I haven't worked out in like 2 weeks. And so I woke up this morning and I was like, do I really want to work out? I'm like, well, Steven's coming on. I think I need to work out so that I can be able to remember what we're working out is like. But yeah, because like I took 2 weeks off, so now I'm super sore today. But yeah.
And you will be.
Yep.
So.
But then, like you said, once you get back in the swing, then you're good.
And you're doing Orange Theory.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been doing Orange Theory Fitness.
So what is the program like?
There's a couple different things you can do. The main class that I go to is like 3 stations, rowing machine, which usually involves some type of like med ball or like kettlebell dumbbell exercise along with it, like row, do something, and then lifting. And so you do specific exercises. Sometimes it's more arm focused, sometimes it's more leg, and sometimes it's like full body with dumbbells. Like there's a bench, so you could do dumbbell presses, but and then treadmill portion, which is my least favorite.
Mine too. I'm not a huge fan of cardio, but I have like a second wind on it actually. Lately I've been like doing a nice, successfully for the first time in a while, 10 to 20 minutes of cardio before exercises. So I feel like it's going to benefit me somehow. But
one of the reasons I signed up, I was like, I knew I had to do treadmill if I do it, and it'll push me because I'm not used to it. Yeah. And I like being pushed.
So like, what are your goals when it comes to exercise? Do you have a specific like goal that is very much like something you're really trying to achieve, or are you just doing it because it feels good, or like what is it?
So yeah, I kind of both. So like always, I like muscles, and so I don't mind building up muscle, losing fat at the same time. Yeah. But also, like you said, I get this like really good feeling when I work out. So like even this morning, a lot of times I wake up and I'm like, do I really want to work out today? And I was like, I know I'm going to feel like 100 times better if I do.
Absolutely.
So, and like I like being pushed in my workout because that's what makes me, I think I feel good that I accomplished something versus, I don't know, I just walked around the block. Even though it's good to even have walks, it just doesn't feel satisfying to me.
Yeah, I agree. No, nothing's wrong with those, especially on rest days. having some cardio training, even if it's as mild as walking, helps with your recovery. It helps increase blood circulation, and that's a big component of recovery. So you actually do yourself less of a favor by really like resting.
And time. You should do something on your off days.
You should like walk your dog, or like I'm going to get a dog eventually in a little bit and all that. But walk your dog, play some basketball. Even just hitting the sauna. I mean, that elevates your heart rate because of the heat. If it reaches an adequate temperature. So any of those are great for recovery.
Do you have access to a sauna?
At the gym, I do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Genesis has.
Like a lot of gyms have saunas.
I should check to see if mine does.
Yeah, no, and there's a whole I'm not an expert in it, but I hear that there's like a weird, interesting effect that goes on to your body when you're exposed to heat and cold, like heat shock proteins that are somehow healthy for your body. I'd have to unpack it by looking at other sources I've read, but it helps.
How do you know what to believe? Like, there's so much,
agreed,
especially with like fitness stuff. Yeah. Like I never know, and that's why I got a trainer.
Agreed. Well, there are some things that are like kind of incontrovertible, and but it is a really big. There's a lot of gray area I feel because nutrition. I don't think we really know a heads or tails about nutrition as a whole, not just in the realm of lifting, but generally. I don't think we really know like much about nutrition at all. So, and that's a huge portion of like lifting and health. So, not saying I have the answer necessarily, but I know kind of what works for me. Some things are kind of known, like supplementation wise. One that's very well known is that creatine has a direct result of building muscle size, but also muscle output in the gym. That's going to be a huge benefit to you. Otherwise, there may be some other supplements that we know about, but I mean, most of them make you feel jittery. Get you like your body kind of jittering in the mood to work out to some degree. It's hard. I kind of rely a lot on the credibility of some of the sources that I listen to, and I test and know what's worked for me over years. So. That's what I think. You kind of hit on an interesting point where someone who might be more like they haven't worked out regularly as part of their natural like maintenance of their health. Like, how do you know where to even start and what to believe that works? And a large portion of lifting is really figuring it out and trying. And it's like the best type of, there's no barrier to entry really. You get a gym membership, you go in and try, and you listen to what your friend or what some interesting person on YouTube might have said, and it might work for you, but you then eventually are forced to adapt because whatever you try, you're either going to be wanting more or you're going to realize this isn't really working for me. And I've noticed that, like I've tried programs where they might look great on paper and they probably have worked for a lot of people, but I'm not happy doing them. I don't feel like I'm, getting a lot of good feeling for this. Is a good feeling for when you've really hit a solid workout that hits the muscles you were looking to hit at enough duration, enough intensity that you walk out of there feeling like $100. So that's where I've kind of gotten to it. And really the big question mark is nutrition supplementation. Like, what do you take? What do you to optimize it? I think you can't go wrong, period, if you're eating healthily and you gain a lot of gains from it. But like, as far as getting optimal stuff, just a lot of research, really.
I really have a question that I've asked people before and I've never gotten a good answer, and I want to know if you know the answer. So if you want to build muscle, you need to be in the caloric surplus, right? But
yes.
if you want to lose fat, don't you need to be in a calorie deficit? Can you do both?
That's
at
an
the
interesting.
Same time? Do you know?
Yes, you can do both at the same time. But I feel like that's an interesting topic in itself, because you got to kind of tackle like what causes like gaining weight to some degree, and like what might be causing obesity. A lot of people, some people are questioning whether the simple calories in, calories out model of thinking about it is valid, because I mean, diets tend to like work a little bit for a while, but then they your body kind of converges back. They don't always like last and such. So it's complicated. I've read that you can. I've never really had too much of like a like trimming fat. Like that's not necessarily been my goal, so I haven't really tried anything like that. But I think you can probably
have to keep researching.
Yeah, yeah.
It probably varies from person to person too, because I know like I am definitely both gaining muscle and losing fat right now. Like
the key differentiators there is like fat burning exercises are really sustained heart rate type exercises. Anything short burst is not going to be super effective at losing weight. So powerlifters, and actually to powerlifters' advantage, they actually want somewhat of a weight. They don't want to be cut and shredded. They actually, in a lot of their lifts, leverage like a big belly, for instance, to their advantage. Like the deadlift, for instance, you're bent over and your belly is like crammed. And then on the way up, you kind of leverage your body a little bit in part of the lift. It's not purely muscle. So powerlifting would not be a powerlifting program would not be effective for you to build muscle and lose weight. Right. Not at all.
All right. So what about, oh my gosh, I forgot the word.
A hypertrophy program?
Yeah. Like, but what do you, bodybuilders?
Yeah. Bodybuilders.
What if I wanted to be a bodybuilder?
Well, you would definitely do a hypertrophy type program, and essentially what a hypertrophy program is really it works on a lot of volume at not necessarily at your maximal lift, but heavy enough to where there's a threshold that it stimulates the muscle. So there's a lot of volume involved. There's a lot of time you put the muscle under tension, and the weight is kind of calibrated to reps. So if it's one of the lower weights, you probably would do a lot more reps. You do a lot of volume. And if this is a relatively higher muscle weight, you would calibrate it lower, but you're still getting a lot of volume in. And so that would be your muscle building component. And I would just throw on some running like you're doing. So it sounds like this Orange Theory programs are really well packaged, have all the equipment, and this probably could accomplish your goal. And I might even suggest supplementing with some more lifting. More lifting.
Yeah, you can go pretty high on the weights they have, which is what I like over like a group fitness class, because I just have my 10-pound dumbbells the whole class otherwise. Whereas now I have my personal rack when I go. But I don't know. I've always wondered, I think I am building muscle because I can tell as I go, like, oh, I'm doing a chest press with more weight now or something. But
you're certainly building muscle.
Bodybuilding may be in my future. I'm not joking. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of.
It's interesting because, like, I've been working with a trainer for a few months now, and I had no idea what kind of program it's in, but I think I'm in a hypertrophy.
There's probably a lot of hypertrophy focus to it because
I told him I want to really build my strength, but I want to stay lean. Like, I don't want to bulk up. I mean, I'm going to get bigger, but, like, that's not my goal.
Yep.
And so he has me doing, like, a lot of volume. And like you said, he adjusts it like based on like whether I'm hitting at like 80% of my max or like 60% or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Orange Theory has different days too. So they have endurance days. So that's like lower weight, higher volume when we do that. But then power days and strength days are like a lot different. Like power days, you're probably doing a lot more jumping and stuff, but strength is heavier, lower rep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool too.
You had mentioned getting a dog, and I know we've talked about this a lot. So where's the status on that? Because I know you said there was like a period of time where I think your cousin was going to have the dog for a bit, but we haven't talked about it for a while.
Right. So, I've been wanting to get a dog for a long time. I mean, I'm really very much a dog person, if anyone knows me. So we just haven't really found a time or place for multiple reasons. But I was looking to adopt a Great Dane that I found on the internet, and I visited it, and it was really a beautiful Great Dane. It was probably about 130, 140 pounds, so not like a massive one. Loved me, instantly bonded. Krishna didn't. She was nervous because it was jumping on my shoulders, so it had some bad habits, and that's not the one you want with a Great Dane. Right. Like if it's a corgi, then you can tolerate jumping, but not for a Great Dane. So it was literally that same day coming out of that, I called my cousin to ask him, hey, is this trainable? Because he's a dog whiz. And he just called me right back and he asked, yeah, it's trainable, but would you like a Doberman Pinscher?
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, it was just spur of the moment, and it was actually worked. So they had a litter that they just had available puppies and they had no buyers. And like, I don't even know if they were really selling. Like, this won't be a registered dog, which is not at all my concern, because I'm not bringing him to a show or any of that purposes or trying to breed him. So it was just an available litter, and they needed to find buyers, and it was a very cheap fee. So it was like, it rolled into it perfect. I was rolling the dice a little bit on the genetics of the dog, but so far he's looking really great. Like, he's got great personality, very inquisitive, tough, doesn't back down from a challenge, but also really cares about like what Todd and whatever owner thinks. So he's very responsive and learns when you say no. You know, he'll look at you and try it again, and then once you tell him no again, you realize, okay, this is probably not something I need to work at or be at. So I'm looking forward to getting him.
That sounds so exciting. Do you get like videos
Yeah.
of him? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Do you know a name yet? You don't have to say it if you don't want. If you want it to be a surprise.
Yeah,
but...
I'll bring him out to you guys.
Okay.
I'll reveal it. So bring everyone over or something like that. But he's really enlightening me on like dog psychology, and because like you've seen the typical Labrador or something that everyone owns, and it's like maybe not as well behaved as it could be. It can do a few tricks, but like when it gets excited, it won't listen to anyone. And then you see like this dog that will do every dang thing an owner will like say, and you wonder, how did it get that way? And he knows exactly how to train it that way, and he's kind of enlightening me about like what you need to create within the dog psychology in order to get him to be like a perfect, well-behaved dog. So I'm going to try my best.
That's really cool that you can have such a good resource.
Yeah.
It's also like a really cool skill to build for yourself, like knowing that dog psychology. What is some like, are there any tidbits that you've learned so far that are interesting? Yeah.
So it actually parallels well to humans. So it all deals with their like dopaminergic responses within the brain and like neurochemistry. So we have that all the time. You know, any vice you return to is oftentimes filled because you get dopamine from partaking within that vice, and you know, we receive it when we interact with people we like and love. You know, we get filled with dopamine. So similarly, dogs have, you know, dogs, I think we bred them so well to like be adaptive to our training that they've now become, especially a Doberman Pinscher, super well and easy to train and connect on a dopamine level. So really, in the first formative years of the dog's life, you want to really be everything about that dog. You want to control every aspect of their life and provide them all the happiness they get in life. So that sounds a little bit like domineering and stuff. But in reality, what you're setting up is that this dog realizes that if he responds to you and you treat him well, and he'll know if you're not treating him well, he won't listen to you if you treat him poorly. So if you treat him well and you're where all of his happiness comes from at a formative age, he'll do everything for you. He gave the analogy, like if you ever like seen like a homeless person and their dog, that homeless person doesn't have a lot of like material things to offer the dog, not at all. And yet that dog is inseparable from that homeless person. And when you're walking past him, he doesn't get excited and run up and try to sniff any random person. He doesn't care. His owner is the only person in that world, and he doesn't have a leash for him. He doesn't have to worry about him running in the street. He'll do everything and stay within proximity of that person. And that's what like according to him, like proper dog training should establish. You're the owner, so therefore you're the alpha. Dogs don't see equals. If you create a relationship where a dog is your equal, that'll actually confuse them and give them anxiety, because they're trying to figure out, am I leading you or are you leading me? And if you just keep giving them an equal kind of like human relationship, they'll end up just dominating you. Think of like the little tiny dog that just runs all over their owner. They're actually think in their head they're the alpha, and rightfully so, because they can't find like how we have as humans like an equal kind of psychology.
That's so interesting.
I think cats like to feel like they're domineering.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. That's
so
that'd be really cool.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I'm kind of, he's given me some prompts about how to train him to like really walk well. So like for a dog who will disobey, is more of an adult, you have techniques where you can like create some discomfort to for behaviors you don't desire, and they'll eventually walk with you like on a leash. But if you start even earlier where I am, you don't even have to go there. It can be all prompted based on positive reinforcement. And you'll never have to train him with any sort of like negativity reprimand again in your life. He'll walk right beside you. He'll explore and be curious, but on command, he'll come next to you. And so that's kind of where I'm starting, is the walk commands, as well as tricks and whatever else I want to teach him. So
I love showing off tricks.
Yeah.
Like, can your dog do this? Can your dog do this?
The relationship between human and animal is always super fascinating to me. Like, I've got 2 cats, and like you were saying, the bond is definitely a little bit different.
Yep.
Although I do think they seem a lot more relaxed when you take charge. So like, if I need to like put them in a carrier to like take them to the vet, the way that I approach them is totally different. I'm very like quick and forceful in my movements, and when I do that, they're a lot more chill about it.
Yep.
But if I try to like be sweet and like slowly move them into the crates, that's when they start to like fight back.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But then like day to day, they definitely have more of the, like, they choose when to sit on your lap. They choose when to, whatever. They'll yell at you for food.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because today I woke up. Okay, we were watching football today, for example. So Dan and I were on the couch for like 3 hours. I might have been studying some of it. There was not like a 5-minute break where our cat, Jackson, was not yelling at us. Because he was like, play with me, pay attention to me. You're not looking at me. It's cute but annoying. But like, that's where I was like, he's trying to demand things out of me right now. Because I usually give it. And I'm like, okay, I'll play with you. But yeah.
Well, you got to be fair. I mean, I'm not going to, by saying this, like, I'm not going to establish my dominance by, like withholding anything necessarily from the dog. Like, you do want to use benefits and pleasures for the dog as a reward mechanism, because otherwise you'll never have really any incentive. But you want it to be nonstop about fun, nonstop positive energy. If you bring negative energy and reprimand in too often, then the dog will be obedient to you for a while, but when he gets old, he's just not going to want to deal with you. He's going to do whatever he wants. He'll get food from you because you got to feed him, but otherwise there's not going to be much to motivate him. So if you really try to be unfair and reprimand through cruelty, you won't have an obedient dog for life. And similar with cats, I'm sure they realize that deep down, they realize you're the reason why they come to a clean litter box every day, and you're the reason why there's water when needed and food at specific times in the day. So they probably don't mind when you're occasionally a little forceful, like, get in this crate so we can go to the vet.
Yeah, cats actually, they've got like a shorter memory for punishment than dogs do. So if you don't punish a cat while it's doing the bad thing, then they won't know why you're punishing them, or they'll misattribute the punishment to something else.
That's super neat.
So with cats, you need to train them almost exclusively with positive reinforcement. Unlike dogs, where there's a little bit of...
Yeah. Even with dogs, I think it should be a very last resort, and you should always be... you should look at yourself as at fault before seeing the dog as at fault. Especially a puppy. They're just so fragile emotionally, and they and Dobermans too, they take longer to reach their adult maturity. I think like German Shepherds, it's like 6 or 8 months, and they're like a fully adult German Shepherd, whereas a Doberman can be up to 2 years. That psychologically they're still a puppy, but physically they look like an adult, and maybe even act like an adult, because they're pretty fierce dogs, or they can be. So that is, it is definitely a last resort in training.
I like it.
Yeah.
Speaking of dogs, Dogecoin, man.
Wow, what a segue. It's an interesting topic. It's a funny meme, I think, for the most part. But wow.
I occasionally see like an article crop up that says like Dogecoin is legitimately a good coin. Thoughts?
I disagree. I'm not as much into the technical details, but the main criticism of Dogecoin is that I mean, it's a copy of a cryptocurrency. So like there was the OG Bitcoin, and then someone decided they're going to create Litecoin, which is like a faster version of Bitcoin. You can transact it faster. And their thought is like, well, we had gold coins and silver coins, and gold was like you held them to yourself and only used them for big purchases, and you transacted in silver every day. Why not we create Bitcoin, which is slower but more secure, and then we'll take Litecoin. But
so Bitcoin's kind of like a gold coin, Litecoin's kind of like a silver coin.
In theory, but in reality, I think they're kind of, it doesn't really fulfill that same value. You're kind of like taking a physical world reality with physical world limitations and trying to transpose that on the digital world. And I think we kind of don't have a use case for that alternate blockchain, which is just the name for the underlying technology upon which Litecoin is built. But back to the original question, Litecoin was copied from Bitcoin, and then Dogecoin was copied from Litecoin. Okay. So it's technically just a copy of a coin. So there really wasn't a lot of thought and planning put into it. It was all copied from one to the other. And since it was created as a joke, and for a long time just sat at like fractions and fractions and fractions of a penny. There was no community underneath of it, kind of developing it and improving the underlying protocol so that it is susceptible from like attack. It's robust enough to prevent and avoid attacks. So I think people could probably trade it. Trading is fun. You buy something now and you anticipate it getting higher. It's always fun to do it. But as far as really making an investment choice on it, I disagree. I'd have to.
Are they doing anything to improve the protocol?
So I think since Elon Musk has gotten involved and has tweeted about it and it's gotten its price surges, it has received some developer activity. I don't follow it, so I won't proclaim to know what they're specifically working on, and even more significant, like I don't exactly know all of the details about how to maintain a protocol, no matter which one it is, Bitcoin or otherwise. So I'm not in the technical realm, but I know it does require maintenance, and some of it is like non-profitable work and has to be sourced through donations. So if there's a community that is donating towards open source software developers who really just work to maintain the protocol, it's definitely going to be a more robust protocol for the future, and it can adapt to changes. One example of what they do, I don't know if anyone want to interject if you had a question.
Well, I was just thinking like maybe you don't believe in Dogecoin for like a true investment. So do you view other cryptocurrency as a good investment?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have no idea what I would be doing if
None
I
of us are
stepped
financial
into
advisors.
this world.
We're not financial advisors at all. No, I'm not certified to give
Personally,
financial advice
would you
to a
invest?
professional. But, personally, my personal views is I think the space is sort of, it is the future. It's kind of where we're heading. And for multiple reasons, I mean, many have come out there, and it's a very divisive topic of which coin are you an allegiance to at some degree. For me, I've investigated all of them. And the main problem, the main innovation is decentralization. That is the main innovation. So somehow we created a digital good that's digitally scarce. That's never been done because you can copy and paste objects on the internet all day long. So we created something that is digitally scarce and provable scarce through decentralization. So starting at the very beginning, Bitcoin was created, and once it's gotten its adoption over all this time, there's no one organization that represents Bitcoin or maintains Bitcoin. It's a loose net of software developers who develop the underlying protocol, miners who update the ledger based on a fair game that was set out and instantiated at the beginning, and the node operators that just kind of check everything and make sure each new block follows the original rules. And they're all a loose group of people that don't know each other. So there's no attack vector there as far as like someone figuring out how to domineer and attack it and take control of it. You can't. Like I can't. It is technically possible, but in practicality, that there's no way to like figure out who all the software developers are, incentivize them to act one way, and then figure out who all the miners are, incentivize them to act a certain way, and then figure out who all the node operators are and incentivize them to attack the network. You'd have to like find them all, and they're all pseudonymous. So that kind of concept can be applied maybe to other areas, like, a corporation is centralized. It is known, it is attacked, so they have to really beef up and protect themselves from being, a source of, of attack in the world. Decentralized organizations are kind of immune from just public pressure, as in a way that's different than any centralized named organization can be.
So correct me. I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying this is a good thing because it can't be attacked? It's kind of like a more like you feel more secure maybe putting it in?
Absolutely. Okay. That's what I think is the main innovation. I think that's why. So a lot of things that we get value from are subjective to presuppositions. So your investment in a company is based on the presupposition that the senior management acts appropriately to increase shareholder value, and the market conditions of the time are optimal so that they find a product market fit, a niche that they can attain. And you do all that analysis, and you think that the cash flows provided by this corporation will create an appreciation in the price. But and so everything we find value in to some degree, we kind of rely on others to validate that, and translating that to money. The big argument is that, we trust that our money issuer in the U.S. government is prudent enough so that it prints at an incremental rate and it can optimize based on what our economy needs as far as the money supply. And it's based on a few people that run it. And what Bitcoin and decentralized protocols attempt to do is take that away and just kind of fix the monetary issuance so that it's not alterable by any one person. Take the company again, a new CEO is appointed who isn't what was in your presupposition there. If you're a minority shareholder, you kind of don't get any say. That kind of just changes your assumptions, and there's a lot of other variables that could go into that change it. And even more to the sense with like money.
Audrey wants to join us.
Yeah, you do.
And we have another guest on the podcast today. Come up here.
So expanding that to like money, like I was saying, we have a monetary system that we really don't have any control over. We have an appointed boards of governor for the Federal Reserve, and they kind of do whatever they want. And then furthermore, for like third world countries, they have their own fiat monies that really don't have any control over. So Bitcoin is an attempt to find a way to just decentralize that, where no one like ruler has any control over it, but rather there are rules that everyone follows and no one can change because it's decentralized.
Gotcha.
So I kind of went on a rant there, and I hope I didn't.
I kind of have. Okay, you can go first.
I was just gonna say my brain's a little bit melty right now.
Okay.
Well, okay, I have a question.
Like I was following. It's just like it's a very densely packed topic, and a lot of fun to think about. But yeah, you've got a question.
Well, it might be. I don't know how to ask the question, but
go ahead.
If I wanted to invest in Bitcoin, for example, I could just like purchase it, right? Just like I purchase a stock.
Yep.
Can't you also mine it where you aren't purchasing it?
You can. So the way mining works is that there's in creating every block, there's a cryptographic hash that you have to solve for, and we could do it by hand, by paper, but we wouldn't be able to it's basically guesswork, and it's scaled up to the power of computers. And if you have more hash power, you have a higher likelihood of being successful at finding the next block. And your reward for finding the block is that you get to create the next block, and you're rewarded Bitcoin as a reward. And so that's essentially what mining does. Okay. And
so do you just purchase it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Mining is tricky because it's a very low margin game. It's highly competitive. You need to know not only it's really optimal about where you get your energy source. Your energy costs are the biggest input. So you need to find and source really unique energy sources that come at a really cost effective rate. And so plugging it into your wall at your residential spot, not going to be competitive. But there are options for individuals.
They're I hear stories about like computer viruses that get sent out that get the computers to mine on behalf of the person who pushed out the virus.
Correct. So if your computer gets affected or your cell phone gets infected, it could be running its CPU or GPU idly, and you won't even know. And some unbeknownst hacker just hacked your phone and got all that mining revenue.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is possible. And
then people stealing electricity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or running mining nodes in their dorm room, on the campus's buck.
Oh, yeah.
That's more back in the day, I think. But I think those are less common now because they're less profitable. There's just, mining has been so industrialized, and they've found really creative ways to mine Bitcoin. So one, I mean, renewable energy is a huge investment of a lot of these companies because there's an initial fixed cost to set up a wind farm or a solar farm. But afterwards, there's just maintenance of those solar panels, and there's no further variable cost. And so it's really, in a lot of ways, is incentivizing renewable farms elsewhere. But also the normal operations of like gas and coal plants, they actually have to stay on like at a fixed level. But because turning on and off is actually very costly and damaging to their equipment. But that's not how demand for energy goes through. So if there's actually a surplus produced and they have nowhere to put it, they actually have to flare it into the air. And Bitcoin miners have actually attached themselves to these sites and taken that excess energy for very cheap. And so a lot of it like doesn't create any more emissions really. It just uses excess energy that's going to be burnt regardless. So it's a really interesting field that all goes into securing the network. Yeah.
That's cool. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
How many years have you been researching this stuff?
Like 7 months.
Oh, you're very new at it.
Oh, I'm very new. Like there's still a lot of gaps that are going on, but I know the different paradigms of like what type of cryptocurrency person there is. So to be kind of, I guess, transparent about what other types of investors will be, like there's Bitcoin, who they have a problem with the main system. All governments, they print whatever money they need to use. And the externalities of printing is inflation, and it offsets the benefits of technology. So when we get better at technology, we do more with less. And those cost savings, instead of getting reaped by people, they get absorbed by government because they print money to offset it. So they can spend money frivolously, and then they create inflation. And inflation affects a lot of people. They put shortages in healthcare, price surges in healthcare, housing, and education generally. So Bitcoin solves that by just creating a decentralized protocol. No one can touch it. No one can change it. It's a set of rules that everyone has to follow, and we can't just print at will. So we have an inflexible money supply. That's the primary group that started all this. Another set of group, which I think are in the likes of Ethereum, Cardano, and other coins, is they want to create applications. So Bitcoin is created specifically at the base layer to be fixed, only serve as store value money. And they don't want to change that because it would compromise how decentralized it is. If you expand it to create not just transactions, but also programming code, the blockchain blows up and no one will be able to look at it. Currently, it's programmed such that any layman can get their computer and look at the blockchain and validate for themselves what the transactions are. So other blockchains have created protocols that include code that can do smart contracting. And that way you can program how you want a set of transactions to resolve, and it goes. You don't necessarily need to talk to a bank. And so that's the value proposition of others. And Bitcoin has chosen to do that on side chains, which are basically faster alternate chains that basically you take a detour off the highway and you do some sort of smart contracting or faster transactions, and you come back onto the main secure highway, which is Bitcoin. Whereas all these other coins have decided to innovate on the main blockchain, which allows for decentralized ability to program and write interesting applications, which touches a lot of different areas. I haven't done as much research on those, but they certainly have a use case that they've carved out, as it's not inconsequential. I mean, they're in the top 500 entities, companies, assets by market cap. They're up there, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of market cap. So which one will be successful? Probably all of them. I mean, I'm mostly leaning towards the main problem being solving the problem that Bitcoin solves. The other ones I think will resolve themselves. We have innovators who will find a way to transact value in a complicated way, like in a contract way. That'll be figured out over time. The optimal one will be chosen by the market, but the main problem that Bitcoin is solving, I think there's a great chance if you look at the economy that people need to invest in things that are non-monetary, that can't be printed into obscurity and such. So that's my main draw to it. I think it solves a lot of those problems.
Well, I feel like just that tidbit of information meant a lot to me because I had no idea why Bitcoin came to be. What's the differentiator kind of thing from?
Yeah, and these are some of the long-term goals. To go back to something that's really practical, like today, there are human rights organizations around the world and repressive regimes. Like I think 86% of the world just doesn't live under a democratically elected government. Yeah. It's mostly dictators in the world. And as such, if you're not on the good list of a dictator, you'll get shut out of the banking system. And literally the only way you can get cash from, say, a Western government is to fly there and receive the physical cash to fund their operations. Mm-hmm. And so Bitcoin right now is banking the unbanked, in a sense. You can't stop the network. They set up an address. All they need is a computer, iPhone or computer, and the internet. And transactions are unreversible, so they can be sent value for their operations regularly now. And that is a valuable use case happening now. And the other one is, even though it's fluctuated, the price has fluctuated a lot recently, it's nowhere near as much fluctuation as the local currency of some of these oppressive regimes. Oh, yeah. And so they don't have access to invest in dollars. They don't have 401ks. They don't have Robinhood. So TM, sorry, I don't know if you guys are getting sponsored by them soon. But,
we're not. But.
Yeah, okay. But they don't have common apps that we have to invest and get exposure to the stock market. So it's actually a method by which one can save that doesn't exist and hasn't existed globally forever. It's one of those most novel inventions. This is why I think it's going to revolutionize the world. And so once you can do that, you can start thinking a little more long term instead of just doing what your father did, which is what your grandfather did and stuff, and living hand to mouth. So those are some of the practical benefits that it's driving, abstract from their long-term goals. Like, what is the long-term ambition of the protocol? There are some real benefits that are actually happening right now. And there's a lot of people I follow that update on some of those. So
it's fascinating stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's move on.
Yeah, sure.
Should we pause?
Yeah, let's pause the episode because actually I think I need a short break as well.
Okay. She's had a couple scares where there's a default setting, if you've been filming for X amount of time, it just resets. And
oh no.
Yeah, well she's live working, so she sees it. But that one time she just noticed it happened and it was no big deal. You can edit through that and patch the missing time.
Well, in the file format that we use, if something goes wrong during the recording, we lose everything. If it doesn't have a chance to finalize the file, then it's all gone.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be pretty bad. 50 minutes into an episode.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
can't really recreate the authenticity.
Yeah. So, you have. I mean, we haven't known each other that long. I guess a couple of years, but it's through work. You've always struck me as a person who is calm and together 90% of the time.
Yeah. Okay. What about the other 10?
The other 10% doesn't come out very often, obviously, but I don't know. I feel like there's something there, and I've always been really curious about it. And I remember one time we were at a function with a lot of friends around a campfire, and somebody brought up something supernatural, and you had kind of a reaction to it, and I asked you about that. And I just remember thinking, okay, wow, there's a lot of depth to Stephen through some stuff through his childhood and maybe young adulthood. And you're clearly in a really good spot right now, at least from the outside.
Yep.
And you were talking earlier about working out and how you reached a solid mental state through that process. And so I guess I'm curious to know what is your evolution over time? How did that come to be? You, and I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who in a way, I think admiration is probably a good word. Like, I really admire at least the mental state that you present, because I can't say that I've got a 90-10 split on my calm versus not calm.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, everyone I think is still processing it to some extent as they continue to grow older. But I don't even know where to begin. This is a big question, but kind of very skimming over early childhood, grew up in small towns to a lower class and sometimes I would say impoverished family. Like we really didn't have a lot. There were plenty of times I'm certain we were like malnourished and had, limited opportunities in life. And the only things I really had going for me is none of my parents had like a crippling like dependency on something such as alcohol. And I had a great mother. I do have a great mother. So she's still around and she's great. So I've had that, and that's generally all you need in life. You can make a lot out of that, no matter what situation you come from. Grew up in a very deep religious upbringing, fundamental Baptist. So it was very rules based, and the rules, they're set in stone based on the Bible. But incoming my dad, he had his own interpretation. And so I think I suffered a lot of psychological abuse from him, just continually from a young age upwards. Young age, obviously you go along with whatever because you're a kid, but once you start having like real opinions, I think everything kind of got morphed by him and bashed. So I kind of entered the real world at college as like wanting peace because it was always a fight and strife, wanting to kind of learn become close with people because I was homeschooled for a large portion of it. And so I was really, even my relationships were very scrutinized, who I interacted with, because I might be a bad influence. So really it was a very naive, but honest, open, go into the world type of attitude. And that's where I was trying to find myself. And I didn't misstep. I misstepped plenty of times. I'm sure I probably misstepped on areas where others maybe had figured it out.
With forming connections between people.
Forming connections, realizing what are bad connections, seeing red flags, learning, and another one was like, what am I going to do with my life? I got pushed into college, like kind of at the last second. Like I had no idea about what one does with their life, career paths. I didn't know what financial markets were. I pretty much only knew like general labor job and doctor lawyer. And I didn't even know what doctors and lawyers really did. A doctor's it's obvious. Lawyers, I don't know. And
were you kind of pushed towards a certain degree?
The medical.
Or something? Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people in my family who are just in medical, from doctor kind of roles to nurses and technicians and such. So I initially got put there into physics, and then I just sort of, I don't know, tried to find myself. And
were you, help me understand like your mindset at this point? Were you we don't need to go too deep into religion, but like were you still in that like religious mindset, or were you kind of trying to like break out of it at that point? Or
yeah, that's a really good question, and that kind of recenters me a bit, because that was drilled into me from a young age. And then I remember there was one point where I decided I didn't want to get up for Sunday school anymore. And I just slept through banging on the door. It was like yelling and banging on the door. We're going to be late. And I called the bluff because my dad didn't like to be late. And we would have been late and missed a lot of the sermon. And so I slept in. And then I remember that was the last time I went to church for what was like a decade or more, over a decade. And I went a bit into the, like, believing there is no God, atheist kind of, maybe not too deep, but I rationalized a little bit with them, purely naturalistic, everything, science is truth. And that's a little cringy in my opinion now. But at the time, it was like my answer. Like there was all this unanswered from, religion. Like, why do we follow these traditions? And it was just traditions. I don't think I was really taught like some religious goers do. So I think I lacked a lot of like answers from it that were answered by just general like scientific naturalism. And that kind of left me thinking that there's no place for religious thought and spiritualism. But over time, I realized that that was honestly kind of an empty like realm to be in. And if we really believed like in pure scientific naturalism, we wouldn't take or eat anything because they haven't been naturally studied. Like everything is not FDA approved. And what does FDA approval really even mean? So like if we really believed in pure, nothing rules-based, science-approved doctrine, then we wouldn't really act because science hasn't figured out with utter definition everything. They find within certain probabilities, and we still do, like in medical realm, like you listen to your doctor, but there's got to be a little bit more faith in life. And so I kind of agnostically came back to believing that there's probably something to the spiritual realm that is real, that people interact with. I mean, people, it's created synthetically by taking psilocybin and mushrooms. People have spiritual episodes where they interact with something that's can only be described somewhat as divine. And a lot of people, different people taking it, have a similar described experience. So there's got to be something out there. And so I've kind of come full circle. And now with my fiance, we are, I mean, she's Christian, and that's kind of where I started, but she's more of like a non-denominational, less fundamental Christian. I think it makes the most sense. It has the ethos that I think makes the most sense out of everything that I've studied so far. And so I'd say I'd come back around and say that Christianity is where I've landed.
So that's quite a journey that you just described there. Yeah. And I feel like you were describing like that over like a 15-year period. Were there any like specific like linchpin moments, like crossroads that you like, you described like staying inside while the banging was happening on the door and skipping Sunday school. And now you've come back around to like, from that to atheism to sort of an agnosticism, but respectful of faith, and now back around to like a Christianity. So were there other transition points, like the banging on the door?
I think it started with frustration. So that's what you were describing there, banging on the door, having to get up and not knowing why. And the easy answer was to find literal truths. So I think there's a distinction between literal and figurative truths, or archetypal truths, if you use a more specific word. Scientific naturalism is true in a literal sense. If you literally take poison, you die, and there's like probably a biological mechanism by which it goes ingested and then it interacts with your cells and destroys tissue and dies, and you can study that and it's literally true. But then there's like there's sort of like, if you take the world too literally, you almost miss the forest for the trees to some degree. There are certain things like stories that aren't literally true, but they describe a circumstance we all run into in life. And I realized that, like the Bible, for instance, talks about, like the flood story. Like the flood is symbolic of something that will bite you if you're stuck too much into your own self-indulgences and sins. There's always a flood coming, and it can just wipe you out. And if you're just aren't prepared, which may seem foolish, like, it's foolish to build a massive ship to house a bunch of animals, to everyone who might just be sitting around jolly and in total splendor. But then once a flood does happen and you don't have, some plan set up, you're just going to get demolished. And that's like, okay, you could debate all you want about whether the flood actually happened, but that's actually not the point, whether the flood happened or not. Whether you're debating from the fundamental Christian side or the atheist side, who might say it's stupid to believe that this massive flood and the description of the ship, we've never built a ship so large, so how could they have built one with ancient technology? That just totally misses the point. And the point is that sometimes stories and beliefs that we've held true for ages have carried us through trying times that we actually all kind of carry with us throughout life. And that made me think, maybe just believing in what we've learned through naturalistic inquiry is insufficient to sustain me in life. Maybe I just got older and I just became more of an adult. Who knows? But I think at some point I realized that you have to have some level of belief in life, else you really can't act. And that belief has to be updated regularly. And to some degree, our spiritual myths that we've learned for a long time do mean something and can be applied. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but that was kind of, I think, the big thing I figured out was like I was searching for a specific answer. I found it, and that answer was insufficient. That I came back around to, you know, have a spiritual appreciation.
So you had like some enlightenment and realized that, like, you know, regardless of what you might think about each story individually, you are able to pull the truths out of them regardless and see their value.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the level of understanding that you have now, is that where you want to be at the end of the day? Do you feel like you have more in this journey? Are you still walking a path, or are you just content?
Yeah, I mean, those are great questions that I could probably take with me till midnight trying to fall asleep, you know. I definitely think the answer is yes. There's always more to learn, and you're never really over it. I mean, some of our spiritual beliefs, they transcend, like, I don't know, they start when we were able to talk as a species. And so if we've been telling a story for that long, there's got to be unending amounts to inquire about. But for me, I think a large portion of my life has been trying to strive for some sort of like stableness. So having a job that can provide for me and a family, but also catching up on just so much time that was just lost due to, I guess, problems I ran into throughout my, you know, childhood. And so as far as what I'm looking for, you know, I'm certain there's more to strive for. I don't have, like, I'm just sort of stuck in between, you know, building who I am today and then figuring out what I want to be tomorrow. I don't know if that's just everyone.
I was going to say, yeah, like your question just makes me think I feel very far from like where I feel like I need or I want to be, not need to be. I don't know if that's how I want to describe it, but yeah, it's just like, yeah, there's so many things that I want to know about myself still that I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on which dimension you ask. Like physically, there are some PR goals I want to get back to in lifting. I want to actually part of a 4-3-2-1 club, which you can deadlift 4 plates, squat 3 plates, bench 2 plates, overhead press 1 plate.
I've never heard this.
I actually think I'm there. I just haven't done the deadlift one, but you know, I probably just pull it out one day. But then like other dimensions, like financially, we'd all like to be like, oh, we have enough finances to retire now. Like that's probably where everyone would agree to be on. I'm not there yet, but I'm on a track to do that. Relationship wise, you know, I'm going to be married next year. That's exciting. It wasn't always exciting because when you're young, you know, you want that freedom. And now I'm in a spot where I think this is exactly what I need. Not just want, need, because I think you just squander if you don't have someone else to anchor you and check you. Friends, I've made a great friend group. I haven't always had a great group, and actually, quite frankly, I don't really have like any friends from my past for reasons. So like I only have the friends I've made moving forward, but I've accomplished that. So to a large degree, I'm satisfied, but I'm open now to experiences that, you know, life may bring me, or, you know, my fiance might want, whatnot, and just kind of somewhat of an open book, reinventing myself.
Yeah. So would you say like the stability you've achieved through like relationship, friends, finances, is that giving you like a platform to do like further, I don't know if experimentation is the right word, but like further exploration of like what else you are?
Yeah. I think that's actually a great model that everyone sort of goes through whether they like it or not. So like a big portion of, you know, wagging your kids at someone who's not getting their act together in life. It's understandable if they're young. You know, someone's in their 20s and they're goofing off, like, oh, they're 20 years old and they'll get a job and be productive one day. But then, like, once you're 30, it's kind of like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, you know, so you're this pluripotentiality initially, and you figure out what you want to do. And I've gotten there, and I think a lot of people need to get there. Then afterwards, with the remainder of your life, as long as you take care of your commitments, you can kind of become that anything again. You know, do I want to take up a certain hobby? Well, now I'm kind of stable and I can. do I want to study philosophy? Well, there's education's free online. I could figure out what I want to figure out. Or I could just be less ambitious, just play video games. It's kind of my, video games are great.
Although I'll say, I think video games can be an ambition.
You're right on that.
It's like studying philosophy.
Exactly. Yeah. There are some games have a lot of depth to them. And actually some games I would say have had more of an impact on me than like some others do. And so it's not even an impact you can verbally describe. Some games just have an aura or feel to them that you remember for a long time. You're not sure why, but they're culturally significant.
I've had games change my life.
Yeah.
And that's probably something we should talk about on another episode. But, but definitely.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's phenomenal. And I do think, though, it's a bit scary, the thought of games, the augmented and virtual reality expanding to the point where it's indistinguishable. I think that's a scary singularity to hit, where life becomes like virtual and recreated. And then that gets into simulation theory. You can find plenty of podcasts where people go deep down the rabbit hole where we're living in a simulation.
I mean, listen to episode 5 and 6.
I don't remember. The one right before this one.
Yeah.
Or 2 before.
But that's a whole interesting brain exercise to think through.
Yeah, you should watch me in that episode because I'm like, the wheels are turning and taking everything in, trying to think about that.
Well, I think we had talked about it a couple times, but then the
Yeah.
last episode,
I
you were
was
like,
just like-
oh, I'm going to be thinking about this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, did we hit everything?
I think so. This was great. I
Yeah.
loved this conversation.
Yeah,
Glad you
Stephen,
enjoyed
thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
I thought you said this was the only time.
No, I'm generous with my time. No, but I appreciate you guys inviting me on. You guys have an awesome set, and it was.
Thanks to your
Yeah,
fiance.
you're literally just like,
I know. But still, nonetheless, I mean, I like the idea you guys thought of, the decor and such. So I had a good time. So
yeah,
Awesome.
we're really happy having you here.
yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks. Sweet. That was really fun.